At the time of this recording, there are 32 Catholic churches in Singapore, and I have seen them all. This is part 4 in the last installment of this 4-part series. From the Church of St. Michael, I moved on to the Church of the Risen Christ. The Church of the Risen Christ opened in 1971 in the newest satellite town of Toa Payoh. But even before then, a community of parishioners had already began forming from the mid-1960s as more people moved to the fast-growing housing estate. The shepherd was none other than Father Pierre Abrial, who had more than a decade earlier built the Church of St. Bernadette in record time. In Toa Payoh, he similarly galvanized his flock, who though were not wealthy, gave generously, some even committing to 18-month installments. Initially, the church was to be named Church of the Resurrection, but the term was found to be abstract and less personal, and the name was changed to Church of the Risen Christ. It was also felt that Risen Christ better expressed the unique character of the Easter mystery. In the early days, French MEP priest Father Joseph Jenekin was sent to look after the Chinese community, as he was then the only priest available who could give homilies in Mandarin. He was known for his meticulous knowledge of his parishioners, with his hand-drawn maps of the neighborhood, and the details of parishioners and their circumstances dotted in his notebooks, so that he could serve them according to their particular needs. As Toa Payoh grew in affluence and size, so did the church and its parish community. At one point, space became such a constraint that catechism classes for children were conducted in places like the sacristy and kitchen. Plans were made for a 4-story extension, and construction finished in 2003. The church choir, led by choirmaster Peter Lowe, rose to prominence in the 1970s and 1980s, touring countries around the world and performing for dignitaries such as Pope John Paul II. In 2002, it became the principal choir of the Cathedral of the Good Shepherd, retaining its name to become the Cathedral Choir of the Risen Christ. The parish is also well served by the Risen Christ Youth Symphony, conducted by Dr. Aloysius Leong. The church now serves about 6,200 parishioners. It is still known for its music, pipe organs, grotto, and thriving youth scene, among other programs and activities. It celebrated its 50th anniversary in 2021. That's our church number 25, and the next church to visit is the Church of SaintAlphonsus, also known as the Novena Church. The Church of SaintAlphonsus was founded by the Congregation of the Most Holy Redeemer, commonly known as the Redemptorists. The shrine, it is not a parish, gets its name from Saint Alphonsus Liguri, the founder of the Redemptorists' Fathers. Over the years, it has popularized the novena devotions to Our Mother of Perpetual Help and drawn Catholics and non-Catholics alike to its Saturday services, hence the popular reference as the Novena Church. The first novenas began in a small chapel in 1949 with just 80 people, but the devotee numbers grew so quickly that even with a new church, they had to break down those side walls and install pews under extended verandas. By the 1990s, the church saw 15,000 or more people attending the 10 sessions of novena devotions held every Saturday. After its latest renovation completed in 2017 and before COVID-19 struck, the number was estimated to have doubled. Unlike a parish, which prioritizes pastoral programs catering to parishioners, as a shrine, its mission is to evangelize. The Redemptorists adapt their apostolates to respond to the changing terrain and needs of the time. This means a constant search in identifying and tending to the new, poor, and abandoned. Its missions and retreats for schools, youth, parishes, religious sisters, and laity are key areas. Social outreach to the elderly, migrants, the underprivileged and sick are others. The Redemptorists introduced the rite of Christian initiation of adults to Singapore in 1983, spurred in part by inquiries about the faith after the novenas began. Two Redemptorist fathers were also part of the founding team of the local Roman Catholic prison ministry in 1977. And because it became clear that petitions for the family were a common theme at the novena devotions, the Redemptorists have also been heavily involved in the work of the family apostolate. Today, the church is also known for its lively Novena Youth Rally, which draws Catholic youth in Singapore for a celebration of faith through music, art, and sharing. And that's our church number 26. Up next is the Catholic Church of Saint Ignatius. Sometime in the late 1940s, the Society of Jesus was approached by Bishop Michel Olcomendi to establish a school in Singapore. However, the Jesuit superiors in Rome felt that it was not the right fit, and nothing came of it. Sometime later, by a strange coincidence, Father Paul O'Brien, the Hong Kong-based vice visitor with authority over Jesuits in Southeast Asia, happened to travel to France, and when changing trains, he entered a carriage which had just one other passenger, none other than Bishop Olcomendi. Eventually, discussions were concluded which would bring the Jesuit fathers to Singapore in 1951. Their first ministry was a hostel for Malayan students attending the Teachers Training College. Father Patrick Joy S.J. was the local superior appointed to oversee the building and management of the hostel. A 4-acre plot was bought in Kingsmead Estate off Farrer Road. The hostel, named Kingsmead Hall, was blessed by Archbishop Olcomendi on 16 August 1954. Masses were held there for the hostelites, but Catholics living nearby also began to congregate. Soon, there was a strong sense that the church needed to be built. It came to fruition in late 1957 when the Archbishop formally requested that the Jesuits build and run a parish. A 35,665 square foot plot was purchased. Father Joy was joined by Father Thomas Doody S.J., who proved to be a brilliant fundraiser. Thanks to his good-naturedness and fluent Cantonese, which endeared him to many parishioners. Father Kevin O. Dwyer S.J. was tasked to fit out the church, which was designed by renowned architect Alfred Wong. On 12 February 1961, Archbishop Olcomendi presided at the blessing and opening of the Church of Saint Ignatius. The new parish was very much an integral part of the local community. The church was sited next to a cluster of wooden houses, and the residents there were served by the Society of Saint Vincent de Paul. Another group of parishioners started catechism classes for children from the nearby kampong and for those who attended non-Catholic schools. In 1988, Kingsmead Hall was converted into a Jesuit novitiate and the Center for Ignatian Spirituality and Counseling. By the time the parish celebrated its 50th anniversary in 2011, a new church building had replaced the original, one that had been envisioned by priests and congregation alike to foster a deeper appreciation of the Roman Catholic liturgy, as well as to enable full and active participation of the more than 6,500 parishioners in all the church's activities. And that is our church number 27. Up next is the Church of the Blessed Sacrament. When the new suburb of Queenstown was coming up in the mid-1950s, there was an opportunity for a church to serve the community there, along with those in the Alexandra and Red Hill areas. Archbishop Michel Olcomendi applied for a site and was allotted the area at 1 Commonwealth Drive, where the Church of the Blessed Sacrament stands today. He then approached the Congregation of the Sacred Hearts of Jesus and Mary for help in establishing a new parish. And so it was that Father William Van Soest arrived in Singapore in 1958, followed by Father Odo Tigaloven, to build a new parish from scratch. Fundraising was a massive challenge in such a small and poor community, and so creative efforts were employed, including staging a variety show, movie screening, and a food and fun fair. Circus Malaya and the Thai Thayan Keo Circus also donated proceeds from their performances to the church building fund. By 1963, a new parish hall was ready, enabling the community to celebrate Mass, and by 1965, the main church was completed. The 1,000 Catholics in Queenstown now had a place to worship, celebrate the Eucharist, and hold their baptisms, marriages, and funerals. By 1965, the parish was serving about 2,000 Catholics. Programs and activities included the Parish Renewal Experience, Life in the Spirit Seminar, and the Youth Lenten Campaign for the Poor. Sunday Mass was often followed by breakfast and fellowship in Damien Hall and visit to the church's mini zoo. By the time Father Albert Renkens took over in 1970, the congregation had swelled to 6,000. However, as the housing estate matured, the numbers began declining. Today, the church has around 1,900 parishioners and over 40 ministries. In 2005, the Urban Redevelopment Authority granted the church conservation status. One of its most distinguishing features is its iconic blue roof, constructed in folds to resemble the shape of a tent. That is our church number 28. Up next is the Cathedral of the Good Shepherd. The Cathedral of the Good Shepherd is Singapore's oldest Catholic church and the official seat of the Archbishop of Singapore. Although most Catholics worship and participate in activities at their parish churches, the Cathedral, as the Mother Church, is a living symbol of the unity of faith that we share. Today, the Cathedral is a national monument and has won numerous conservation and heritage awards. But it started as little more than the humble wooden chapel in 1833. By 1847, it had been replaced by a bricks and mortar church, which was blessed by Father Jean-Marie Beurel, head of the Catholic Mission. The Church of the Good Shepherd was elevated to the status of a cathedral in 1888. The church was dedicated to the Good Shepherd in memory of Saint Laurent Imbert, a French missionary who visited Singapore in 1821 and was later martyred in Korea. It was Father Imbert's letter reporting to the Apostolic Vicar that is regarded as the first known record of Catholics in Singapore. Later, in another letter written to his persecuted compatriots prior to their execution, his exhortation of the Good Shepherd who lays down his life for his flock was how the church came to be named as such, and its connection to this martyred saint. The cathedral stood tall through World War II and was at one stage used as a refuge and an emergency hospital. Over the years, it has played host to important visitors, including the 1930 visit of Saint Maximilian Kolbe and the 1948 visit of Venerable Fulton Sheen, along with his Archbishop Francis Cardinal Spellman. Architecturally, the cathedral is reminiscent of two famous London churches, St. Paul's in Covent Garden and St. Martin in the Fields. Its Neo-Palladian porticos and steeple are its most prominent features. Inside, 14 large oil paintings of the Way of the Cross, blessed in 1907, adorn the walls of the nave, while the gallery houses Singapore's oldest pipe organ, a Bevington & Son instrument. Renovations and restorations have helped to maintain much of the original beauty and significance of its liturgical elements. The spatial design and the heritage gallery also helps the cathedral to fulfill its role as a converging point and center of life for the archdiocese. And that is our church number 29. My next destination was Our Lady of Lourdes Church. The Church of Our Lady of Lourdes is a church of many firsts. It pioneered many community programs to serve its primarily Tamil-speaking congregation. It built the first outdoor shrine, was the base for the first Catholic Young Men's Association in Singapore before World War II, and used to run Our Lady of Lourdes School, one of the earliest Tamil schools in Singapore. Indian Catholics had a presence in Singapore as far back as 1821. In 1885, the Straits Settlement's governor granted a free plot in Rochor for a church to be built for the rapidly growing community. With the help of benefactors, it was completed and opened in 1888. It focused on looking after the spiritual needs of the Catholic Indians in Singapore, as well as southern Johor. By 1974, the church was ministering to all Catholics in Singapore, especially those living in the areas surrounding Ophir Road. This was part of a larger diocesan shift away from ethnic or language-based parishes to territory-based parishes. In 1942, 2 air raid bombs damaged the parish school and the presbytery. The main church remained intact and was conscripted as the Japanese Army's headquarters during the Japanese occupation from 1942 to 1945. The church has undertaken various social initiatives to help the migrant workers in its congregation. In 2000, a center was set up on its premises to help them upgrade their knowledge or pick up new skills. A parish ministry, the Migrants Welfare Committee, offered financial, social and legal assistance, counseling, and befriending services to Tamil-speaking migrant workers. The church is a neo-Gothic building modeled after the Basilica of the Immaculate Conception in Lourdes, France, and was named in commemoration of the same Marian apparition in 1858. It has a grotto with statues depicting Our Lady's appearance to Saint Bernadette and stained glass windows depicting the 15 mysteries of the Most Holy Rosary. A relic of Saint Bernadette is inset into the altar. The church was gazetted as a national monument on January 14, 2005. Okay, that's our church number 30. Up next is St. Joseph's Church at Victoria Street. The Portuguese mission had been ministering to Catholics mainly from the Portuguese and Malacca Eurasian lineage from as far back as 1825. In 1853, St. Joseph's Church in Victoria Street was opened for worship and mission work. From 1853 to 1981, it was the only Catholic church in Singapore under the jurisdiction of the Bishop of Macau until an agreement was finally reached to transfer it to the Archdiocese of Singapore. It then ceased to be a parish church and became a church of devotion. A significant segment of the Eurasian community in Singapore in the early days were baptized and married here. It was known as the Eurasian Church, with successive generation of families such as the De Costas, the De Cotas, the De Sosas, the De Melos, the Deskers, the Fernandezes, the Gomezes, the Josephs, the Pereiras, the Pintos, the Tessensons, and many more among its parishioners. Many descendants of the Portuguese and Eurasian families still have deep ties to the church. It continues to uphold many religious traditions originating in Portugal, including the reenactment of the death of Christ on Good Friday and devotions to Our Lady of Fatima on the 13th day of each month. The current church building, which was completed in 1912, was designed by Swan and McLaren in the neo-Gothic style and comprises a central, octagonal belfry tower capped with a cupola dome and cross, and flanked by two small towers. The 8 sides of the main tower symbolize the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Portuguese blue and white ceramic tiles called azulejos, depicting the apparitions of Our Lady of Fatima, were added to the front facade in 1950 to commemorate the visit of the pilgrim statue of Our Lady of Fatima from Rome. The church houses the only traditional pulpit in Singapore. Apart from its Italian sculptures, it is also known for having one of Singapore's largest collections of religious stained glass windows. They were produced by the Belgian Jules Dobelaere, then a world-renowned stained glass craftsman. The church grounds, originally belonging to the Portuguese mission, also housed St. Anthony's Convent for Girls and St. Anthony's Boys' School. St. Joseph's Church was officially gazetted as a national monument in 2005. In recent years, the church has been closed for a massive restoration project and hopes to welcome back its parishioners in 2022. And that is our church number 31. Up next is the Church of Saints Peter and Paul. The Church of Saints Peter and Paul was the original home of the early Chinese and Indian Catholic communities. It was built in 1870 under the leadership of Father Pierre Paris. Its construction and subsequent renovations were sponsored by wealthy Chinese Catholics such as Pedro Tan No Kea, Jacob Lo Kok Chiang, and Joseph Chan Tek He. They and other generous benefactors are listed on the plaque by the entrance. While Cathedral of the Good Shepherd was known as the Mother Church, the Church of Saints Peter and Paul was considered the home of the various ethnic communities and became the branch-off point for them to develop their own parishes. In 1888, the Indian congregation moved to the Church of Our Lady of Lourdes. In 1910, the Cantonese and Hakka Catholics started their congregation at the Church of the Sacred Heart in Tank Road. In 1929, the Hokkien-Fukien communities were able to worship at the Church of St. Teresa in Kampong Baru. As the seat of the Catholic Chinese mission, Saints Peter and Paul was a beacon for Chinese converts from all over Asia. It was also where newly arrived European missionaries would be sent to learn the Chinese dialects before moving to other postings. The parish also nurtured the first local-born priest, Father Michael Seat, who was ordained in 1911 at Saints Peter and Paul in a highly celebrated affair. Chinese Catholics from all over Singapore came to witness and participate in the joyful ceremony of his ordination. The parish has also played a significant role in local education. Parish priest Father Edward Becheras, one of the champions of Catholic education, founded the Sino-English Catholic School, later renamed Catholic High School in 1937. He was one of the first educators here to promote the concept and importance of a bilingual education. In 1997, the Descalced Carmelite friars were given care of the parish. The church was gazetted as a national monument in 2006. Finally, we have reached church number 32. I would like to thank you guys for joining me on my quest to visit all the 32 Catholic churches here in Singapore. Again, thank you and God bless. See you on the next video.